Good morning, everybody. We're just going to take a minute to have everybody connect and then we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Monahan, and I'm the Education and Events Manager for Leading Age Massachusetts. I'm also happy to welcome members from Leading Age Maryland as well as Leading Age Ohio to this event. I'm very pleased to be offering this webinar today on cybersecurity, helping older adults stay safe on the internet. So I just wanted to let you know, and I know that the speakers will go over this too, both the chat and Q&A function are available. This webinar is being recorded, so please be aware of that. And I will turn it over to Rubesh.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Welcome and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar. The plan for today is for us to first introduce ourselves and then motivate the conversation by having a short discussion on why we actually need to help older adults to be safe on the internet. And then launch into what are some gentle practices to keeping older adults safer on the internet. And lastly, we'll wrap up with the Q&A. And to follow up on Lynn's guidance, you can either use the chat function to bring up questions and discuss your thoughts and ideas, or you can use the Q&A function that you can see on the screen to pose your questions. We'll address as many of the questions that come up at the end of the discussion. But first, let me also introduce myself. I'm Rubesh Jacobs. I am the Managing Director of 24/7 Techies USA. I have been working in the retirement industry for over 20 years, but for most of that time, it has been helping adults save and invest for retirement. And my function has largely been focused on technology, data, and analytics for that area. I have since also taken responsibility for 24/7 Techies in the USA. 24/7 Techies was founded in 2009 as an organization to specifically support older adults with their personal technologies. We started up with investors from Google and Microsoft, and since then have built highly trustworthy, credible business with over 40,000 clients that we've served, receiving consistently year over year a net promoter score of 90. Which brings me to 24/7 Techies. We support older adults with just about any technology issue or question that they have, ranging from PCs, laptops, tablets, smartphones, all the way to peripherals like printers or their Wi-Fi. And yes, we help them with cybersecurity issues as well across any operating system like Microsoft, Apple, or Android. We have been working with Leading Age for almost a year now, and we are really happy with this relationship, and we are really excited to be able to partner with them to kick off National Cybersecurity Month. And with that, I'll also let my colleagues on the panel, Stephanie Helm and Judy Miller, introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Stephanie and then Judy?
Okay, thank you, Rubesh. I'm Stephanie Helm. I am the director of the Massachusetts Cybersecurity Center. It's part of the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, and it's a quasi-public agency working for the state in the innovation economy. So the Cyber Center really focuses on a number of different things, such as resiliency for the Commonwealth, for collaboration and planning services, the ecosystem development. So we work a lot about developing the talent for cybersecurity professionals that would either work in state government, local government, or private technologies. And then we also do outreach. So we're very happy that it's Massachusetts Cybersecurity Month. And we'll talk a little bit later about the website that's got information about the Cybersecurity Month activities that will be ongoing in Massachusetts. My background is I'm a retired naval officer. I served for 29 years. I retired as a captain in the Navy, which is like a colonel in the Army, only better, I like to say. My career was across Italy, California, Florida, Virginia. Ended up at the Naval War College where I taught military operations, and then I worked in the wargaming department specifically on integrating cyberspace operations into war games. And that was pretty challenging because it was an opportunity to talk about how cybersecurity or cyber operations can affect operations that you really traditionally would not think would be an impact. I think today we all know that has great consequences to our daily life. But at the time I was doing that, it was sort of a novel idea to think about that. And then I've been with the Mass Cyber Center for 3 years. And I really appreciate the opportunity today to talk about cybersecurity for elder citizens.
Thank you, Stephanie. Judy, you're still on mute, by the way, Judy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Miller, and I'm the Director of IT and Accounting for Kendallette Oberlin. And Kendallette Oberlin is a life plan community in Oberlin, Ohio. We're located about 30 miles west of Cleveland. We also are affiliated with the Kendall Corporation out of the Philadelphia area and have approximately 14 other communities across 9 different states. I've been with Kendallette Oberlin for over 28 years. I started before our community opened. We were officed in some of the model units. So it's been really a pleasure and adventure at the same time, just how things have evolved from, our first servers, having 2 gigs of space in them to, our data centers that we certainly take care of now. Our life plan community here in Oberlin has 224 independent living units. We have 55 assisted living units, 12 memory care, and 12 Medicare licensed skilled beds. Our campus sits on approximately 110 acres, and we're right down the road from Oberlin College. We enjoy a wonderful relationship and partnership with Oberlin College. We our residents are able to audit classes. We employ work study students. We host live events for students at Oberlin College, certainly in non-pandemic times, and just have lots of other opportunities where we partner with Oberlin College. And approximately 37% of our residents have some affiliation with Oberlin College, whether they're alumni or whether they are a retired professor. And as Stephanie mentioned, in regards to cybersecurity and awareness, it really is of the utmost importance to Kendall. And it has come to be, in the past several years, more and more important, even as it relates to cybersecurity insurance and some of the requirements now as it relates to cybersecurity insurance, having multi-factor authentication and different areas that we really have to be in tune to. And certainly not only for our infrastructure and our staff, but certainly for our 340 plus residents throughout our communities. And statistics certainly show that seniors lose an average of $500 or more when they're scammed. And it really sometimes is due to the fact that, they seem to be and are trusting and polite. They own their own home, they have good credit, so they make good targets. They also most recently have been falling prey to cyber incidents because of their increased use of the internet. And that increased use of the internet certainly increases their vulnerability because they're less aware of cyber attacks and fraudulent attempts. So, we certainly hope to, as Stephanie mentioned, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we'll be employing lots of different tips and tricks as we go along during the month of October to our residents and staff alike.
Thank you, Judy. Let me spend a couple minutes just sharing some data on why it is that it's so important to be an extra pair of eyes and ears for the residents in our communities. As Judy mentioned, we do invest a lot in the infrastructure to protect the data and protect the networks and protect the systems that we use to administer them. But as you know, all of our residents bring their own technologies and they have varying levels of secureness about them. The data I'm showing you here comes from the Federal Trade Commission, and they've been tracking this data for years and years. As you can see, there's 3 trend lines here for online, phone, and email related loss reports, meaning an older adult has called and reported that they've been scammed out of money through one of these channels. And I'm just highlighting here the online and email channels, and you'll notice the spike starting about 2019. And the steepness of that spike is shocking. As Judy said, the older adults make great targets, especially at the living communities where you know the quality of their worth, the net worth is high. Shockingly, we've also noticed this trend in our own call centers. Rough 28%, or roughly, if you want to think about it, a third of the calls that we get for help are somehow related to fraudulent activities online, which is very shocking. But we try to answer the calls patiently, respectfully, and gently, because the last thing we want to do is introduce more fear or panic into the situation. And lastly, I want to tee up more data from the Federal Trade Commission. And here, they've done a nice job of dividing up the types of scams that have been reported by who have been the victims. So there's age group 20 to 59 years, and then the dark green is the 60 plus or older adult age group. You'll see there's online shopping although most people who fall for online shopping scams are younger, there's a significant proportion of online shopping scams, and it's the largest proportion of older adults falling for online shopping scams here. I also want to draw your attention to tech support scams. Now, I have a personal interest in presenting the amount of tech support scams because those types of scams actually damage our business, but we recognize that those types of fraudulent activities exist. But we partner with our clients, retirement communities, and individual adult clients to help them avoid these scams. And every time we speak to them, we actually tell them, if you ever get calls like this, please call us, we'll help you decipher through them. And then there's other scams where, there's fraudulent scammers posing as the government or relatives and whatnot to scam money. So you see the magnitude of the issue that are being faced by older adults. And I guess this may be a good point just to ask, maybe first I'll ask Stephanie and then Judy. As you look at this data, how does that measure up with what you've seen, and what thoughts would you have to share?
Well, I would kind of give just an overview about there are 2 components that are really involved in when we are looking at these issues. One is the technical cybersecurity of the device that the individual is using, and the cyber hygiene, for lack of a better term, that they implement in their life. There's a technical vulnerability that can be exploited, whether it's getting somebody's password, whether it's exploiting a vulnerability because they failed to update the device to include a patch. maybe they're using an unsecure Wi-Fi, when they're in a public location and there's, bad guys on that. So there's a technical component that everybody that uses the internet is facing today. And then there's the thing that I call the social engineering of the individual, where they're actually including the person in making a mistake or divulging information based on the fact that somebody is engaging them in a personal way. So older folks may not have the comfort level and the technology to secure their information and use the technology to help them. And then they may be more vulnerable to the social engineering. So the things you're describing, Rubish, really are troublesome for senior citizens, because they really are kind of in that nexus of a criminal can get at them through a technical means, or they can get at them through social engineering. And in some cases, the protections that you put in place kind of have to be also looking at both of those directions and both of those aspects, because you're not quite sure which of those things as a person might be the most vulnerable for. So I think that's really troublesome. We talk about cybersecurity in context of it's people, it's the process, and it's the technology all working together to kind of help make you more resilient. And I think we'll talk later about the component of people and the ability of friends and family and staff members to provide assistance to these elders. But just to describe a little bit, the technology piece, we'll talk about that there are things that best practices that can be implemented that can at least help raise the security of the elders' device a little bit. But when you're talking about social engineering, there's some components of social engineering that are worth thinking about. For example, there's usually a real person, even if it's a bot, that it looks and sounds like a real person. They take a persona and they engage with someone. And what they're trying to do is establish some sort of a relationship with the person that is being targeted. And usually those bots are automated, and if they get a couple of replies, then a real person will come into play. And that real person is trying to establish some sort of a relationship. And you can see from the slide that we're on, what the topic might be. It might be that a person is lonely, and so they create some sort of a relationship, and it becomes a quote unquote romance. Or they might be trying to help the person do some business online, and they want to be helpful to them. And they're trying to establish some trust. And even the best well-meaning adult is going to somehow, if they continue this engagement, these are professional people that know how to kind of hit those emotional buttons and continue that relationship with the hope that somebody's going to divulge information. And that's where I think that it's really challenging. And then, the kicker usually is some component of urgency that says, okay, now I've really got to do this. You need to help me. And engaging that person with an amped up sense of urgency that they've got to give information. So those are kind of like the ways that this is coming at people. And I think it's very difficult for anybody in society to be fully armed and resilient. But I think as people become isolated in their old age, or they're not really as familiar with some of the technology, they really get intimidated. And so this is probably an area that is worth us trying to see if we can be more helpful to them.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Judy, any thoughts, reactions from your perspective?
So I would say that, we certainly have had similar experiences to what's shown on the slide. We've seen scams related to imposter, family, friend that have resulted in residents sending money, scams related to PayPal to gift cards seems to be iTunes, especially iTunes gift cards the most. The IRS, your bank, Microsoft, certainly all very vested organizations that, our residents would have some familiarity with or get roped in a little bit. And most of them have originated from email. Our residents will generally contact our HR director, who is also our risk manager, or they'll contact myself, basically to report events or to really determine whether or not an email is valid, or to seek some assistance in what are their next steps if in fact they did fall prey to, a cyber incident.
How often do you hear about these things, Judy, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I would say that, it's almost more important how much we don't hear about them, and that's really, what keeps us on alert. And we certainly, as soon as we hear something, we certainly send something out to alert residents to something that they could possibly encounter. And, we do have a lot of savvy residents, tech savvy residents as well, that will send us something, hey, here's this Google scam, can we get it out to the rest of the resident body so everybody is aware of it? So, it's really engaging the entire community to help each other in preventing some of those things from happening. But I would say, it might be, sometimes we might go a couple of months without anything that we are aware of. And then there might be other months where it could be a couple times a week.
Wow, thank you, Judy. And it's a terrific, insightful way to think about it, as how much are we not hearing about what's going on
Yeah,
with the
if I
residents.
could add on to that, Rubish.
Yes,
I
please.
know some folks that run residents' homes, and were saying that because of the pandemic and the lack of visitors, that normal interaction with friends or family coming into the apartment and talking with the senior citizen, that isolation really did offer opportunities for criminals to take advantage of that isolation. And it was only when the vaccination started happening and people started visiting, people were able to come in and see evidence of activities that were not normal, that were concerning for the family members or for the friends. And so, to Judy's point, having an ability for someone to ask questions or to talk about things that they've been presented with in a safe manner is really important.
Great points. It tees up our next discussion very well, is to think about how we can be a set of additional eyes and ears for these residents. And I'll let Judy kind of walk through some of the types of scams that they may run into and how the people around them could, pay attention to how they could spot these.
Right. So certainly in this particular area, we have seen most, if not all, of these particular scams happen to our residents, and quite frankly, sometimes even to our staff. Probably more staff with online shopping. There's so many shopping sites out there right now, and certainly increased with the pandemic and the ability that you couldn't shop. You were shopping online, even to get your groceries, to do curbside pickup. So, when you're looking at online shopping, it's really, vetting that website of that online shopping site. There's certainly different ways that you could do that. Signing up for education programs, you have to really provide staff with the tools to be able to see, and not only staff, but residents, to see where those particular areas could be fraudulent. As I mentioned, unfamiliar shopping sites, ways to make money, just ways that say, hey, enter the sweepstakes and you're going to win all of this money. You need to be very skeptical. And I'm not always a skeptical person, but certainly in these particular instances, you have to have some form of skepticism. Tech support, a lot we've seen lately is even stuff popping up on resident computers to say, hey, this is Microsoft and you have a problem with your computer. Or getting a telephone call, hey, we're calling you, telling you that, we're from Microsoft and your support is ending. Just those as Stephanie had mentioned, luring you into a conversation and, trying to get money from you or trying to get access to your computer by a third party, which is not something, that we would normally do. And I would also say it's a great idea for our residents, and we certainly do promote it, that they purchase some type of antivirus software for their computers. It's not an end all do all, but it certainly is a way to protect your devices. Also, to be able to, we did provide during the pandemic, normally we do support residents. We have a wireless campus and we do support them as it relates to connectivity to that wireless network and getting their devices connected. But, we have 1.5 technology FTE, so not really the bandwidth to be able to provide full technical support. But we did open up some of that during the pandemic, to get people connected via Zoom or WebEx or FaceTime to family members and friends, and also to provide assistance, in different areas of things that we normally wouldn't provide. So we did open up some tech support during that time as well. The Social Security Administration, IRS, Medicare is a big one right now with the senior population. Medicare imposter fraud of wanting them to sign up for a new Medicare program. We do get calls on this, but we do also have an insurance coordinator in-house that provides great guidelines that she walks them through and is available to walk them through on an annual basis, their insurance plans, and if there is one out there that would be better for them. So we haven't seen too much of that historically, but it's really starting to come back into play now with Medicare being one of those imposters. We really do tell our residents, don't ever share your personal information. Your bank is not going to call you and ask you for your personal information. Your bank is going to send you some type of communication in the mail if there is some type of an issue with your account. Just really holding that personal information very close, date of birth, social security number, bank account information, credit card numbers, be very distinguishing when you're using those online or giving them, telling them over the telephone. I, for one, somebody asked me for my social security number. Well, do you really need that? So I'm very cautious of that. We haven't really had number 4, the romance one, in our community. The prizes sweepstakes, absolutely. We have had some residents fall prey to, you've won a sweepstakes, we just need your information so we could deposit the money. And it's really, having a conversation, finding out, the details, making sure a resident is calm, they're able to tell you the details, get all of the information, determining, the next course of action. Did they actually get scammed? Is there someone we need to telephone? Do we need to get authorities involved? So certainly a list of things, when something like this happens, and knock on wood, it hasn't been, we haven't gotten quite a lot, but, certainly, we have had residents fall prey.
Good illustrations and examples here, Judy, and it just goes to underscore the extent to which these people get hammered with these scams. I'll ask Judy or Stephanie, sorry, to just give her thoughts on some of the points that Judy made, and then while she's speaking, I'll also move to the next slide where Stephanie can expand on her technical and kind of the cyber hygiene and a personal aspect of keeping these adults safe.
Yeah, to Judy's point about shopping online, I would encourage people to shop at a reputable online resource of a company that you're familiar with, and then make sure you've got the correct website that you're working on. Reputable companies, they protect their outward facing website because they don't want to have compromise of transactions going through their site. So you're confident if you're I don't want to name brands, but going to a name brand and understanding that I know what this website is, and when I'm doing my transaction, that little secure lock is is present, so that that tells me that I've got confidence in that company. And the other thing I think that Judy brought up, which is really good, is knowing in advance where you're going to be making financial transactions, having a list of those companies and those websites, so that if something happens, you're able to not only go to that website, but you can get their phone number in advance. We talk a lot about countering misinformation by knowing the credible sources that you should be going to. So for the Social Security Administration, it should not be ending in .com, for example. That should be .gov or something like that. So having all of those, websites that are important to you for your, life support for financial transactions or medical information, have those someplace that you can get to, and that you don't inadvertently go to a scam website. And then that scam website is going to try and capture that private information and use it to either their benefit, or they're going to sell it on the dark web as potential information. So it's really good to be cautious about only accessing trusted websites, and ensuring that there's that little lock when you're putting in your credit card, that you have a secure connection with a reputable website. The other thing that I would say about some of these scams, is particularly the prizes and things like that, if it sounds like it's too good to be true, it probably isn't true. And I like to talk with senior citizens about having confidence in the skeptical skills that they had throughout life, right? These are scams that happen to be on a computer, but they are scams we grew up with since we were kids, of, bait and switch, or trying to be an imposter. I know, 15 years ago, my folks were getting calls from their grandson who was in Mexico, didn't want to tell mom and dad, and he needed money quickly to get out of this Mexican jail. Well, happily, my son was sitting right next to me when my dad called. But that's an old scam that has now just been transposed and put onto the internet. So I think talking about how these scams exist, and give senior citizens the confidence that they recognize, if they think about this, that this doesn't make sense. And again, avoid that sense of urgency to act, because that's where you kind of make a mistake. Nothing is that urgent. And it is perfectly acceptable to say, I do all of my business by mail, put a letter in the mail to me and I'll respond to you. But I think that there's that component of, being able to understand trusted websites, having people that you can confide in and ask for assistance is really important. And then I know, Rubish, you mentioned that earlier about doing tech support, but it really is very critical to have someone pre-identified that you can use as a tech consultant. Maybe that's the IT director at the facility. Maybe it is a trusted younger person. But really thinking through, who can I ask for help when this comes up? Because that is going to happen. And then talk about those sorts of best practices periodically to remind people, hey, you can always ask our IT people, or you can always ask the aide to get you some help. Whatever your concept might be, start the dialogue and the conversation before there's an incident. It gives people a sense of confidence, like, I don't have to respond right away. I can go ask somebody. I don't have to be under the gun.
Thank you, Stephanie. Can I just pose a question for both of you? For the staff who are working around these senior citizens, older adults, what can they be listening for, being an extra pair of eyes and ears for these folks, so that they can help them kind of nudge them along if they're running into these types of issues, kind of intercept problems, if you will?
I'll let Judy go first. She's probably got some great experience there.
Okay, so I would say that in the independent living area, recognizing that those residents are independent living residents, they're not so much staff around them, if you will. We are looking at certainly providing them with some additional training and technical support. So we're going through our strategic planning process right now. We've done a couple surveys, and it certainly has come to light that our residents want additional testing, additional training and additional tech support. So in the particular training area, we are looking at a couple of different options. There's Protect Seniors Online resource, which it's a public education site, and it's run by Home Instead Senior Care, which is a local home and community-based services organization here in Ohio and probably in other parts of the United States. They have some articles, some videos, and a couple of quizzes for seniors. There's also the CISA government publication website that we might have put on here. They have some one-pagers, a PDF presentation, some Internet of Things tips, and some social media tips, which is something that we didn't touch on either, is really what's going on in the social media arena right now. And then there's also a cyber seniors organization. And basically, this is really more of an intensive program that you can sign up your organization, and your residents can actually have a login as well. And basically you register and you get access to training tools, similar to a tool that we use for staff right now, which is called KnowBe4. It is a security training. We do different types of campaigns and videos with our staff throughout the year. And we have thought about using it for our residents as well. We're looking at it, just a host of different things for our residents. So there's also mentor training programs and senior training programs in the cyber seniors area. They do have a lot of information as it relates to the cybersecurity awareness and the month that we're celebrating for cybersecurity awareness. Now in our Stevens Care Center, which is our population of assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing, there's a lot of support given to residents in the care center, especially, Stephanie mentioned during the pandemic, just the loneliness and the social isolation. So we implemented, several different things. We put in 2 additional television channels, one specifically for the Stevens Care Center and to provide programming, because back when, the pandemic was hitting full force in 2020, we weren't doing any group programming or anything. It was all individual, one-on-one. So we implemented a television channel. We also implemented a television channel to be able to broadcast over the television station from our auditorium, any types of movies or any different things that, they couldn't come in person, but we were still having the event, but they were able to watch it on a television screen. Certainly Zoom meetings for any of our afternoon exchanges that normally would have been in person, just a host of different things like that. And, purchasing and providing devices for residents to be able to have that interaction with family and friends, whether it be an Echo device or, an iPad or any device that they would really be able to have that connection with friends, even friends in the community, friends out of the community, and certainly family, that might be away and live internationally, even family that might live in, the Oberlin community. So we definitely provided lots and lots of one-on-one assistance, during that time.
Thank you.
And something that's come to my mind about, talking about these scams and the potential technical challenges that might be posed. I am well aware that many staff members, if in an effort to help a resident, may use their own personal device to help connect somebody. Maybe that that resident doesn't have their own iPad or their own phone, and they need to connect with family, or there's something going on. The staff probably needs to be in tune a little bit as to what some of these scams might be looking like to an elderly resident, because they don't want to enable that additional connectivity to a potential scammer or fraud person or to the criminal. And the staff member may be having the best of intentions of trying to proceed with that, it might be the staff member that can go like, hey, this doesn't make much sense. Let me help you investigate that. So it is probably an important component of staff training to highlight some of these potential challenges so that they can help on that as well.
Absolutely.
These are terrific points, Judy and Stephanie. Thank you for this amazing set of examples and insights from your experience. I think we've had a conversation about the magnitude of the issue, and Judy and Stephanie have been super helpful in kind of bringing to life the types of issues, cyber-related issues that are faced daily by older adults. And they've given you some tips about what to watch for, what to listen for, and how to gently intervene, ask questions, offer some suggestions, and offer some reminders on an ongoing basis. But they've also made an important point about the need, one, to provide a little bit more training and ongoing guidance for the staff themselves, because they do get a lot of requests and a lot of questions. And also, to Stephanie's point, having an identified technical security person or organization that they can reach out to. I hope this discussion has been insightful for everyone. We have recorded and will be sending this out, but I also want to have Judy and Stephanie talk a little bit about some of these resources that they identified and that they generally share with their teams and staff before we go into Q&A.
I'd like to start with our website, the Mass Cyber Center. We've got, for those of you organizations that perhaps are interested in incident response planning in case you have a cyber event, we have tools, recommended templates, and information on how to build an incident response plan. So for your organization, if you don't have one in place, I would highly recommend you have a plan and that you have it printed off. In the event that your system is compromised, if it's sitting on your computer, you won't be able to get in touch with the people you need. We also have, because it's Cybersecurity Month, we do have a lot of outreach materials. It's called Life's Work on the Go. And it talks about the component of working at home, working on the go, now that we're sort of in the hybrid situation. And there are probably tips there that might be very applicable to your organization. It talks about friends and families, tech support, those kinds of trusted folks that you should be having a conversation with about cybersecurity. And then there's a whole list of recommendations about passwords, having updates, understanding what networks you're connecting to. Those are more kind of those technical recommendations that I mentioned earlier to help you be resilient. And then I recommended the AARP website. It has that combination of technology, but it also talks about those social engineering sorts of threats that are out there from the criminals. And that's a nice handy page. Judy mentioned CISA. There's just a load of information on that website. It does have the Cybersecurity Awareness Month information. Also for you as an organization, it's has a great website, stopransomware.gov. And that's got everything in there that they could think of to put together to help organizations counter ransomware.
Great, thank you so much. We'll take a few questions that have come in. First, how can the IT team help residents to stay vigilant? Perhaps I let Judy take that one first, and maybe Stephanie jump in.
So I would say, you know, some of the different things we've talked about is really giving residents information and resources to be able to recognize, you know, fraud and scams, and, you know, keeping them updated and in the know of the new things that are coming out providing them with training, providing them with the support that they need, whether it's, you know, staff on site, whether it's remote support, you know, just giving them, you know, the different options for them to be able to stay abreast of what's going on. You know, as I mentioned, we're looking at more of a training program for our residents, which certainly would include cybersecurity, but a host of different other things. Leading Age National has actually put together a great white paper on, the title of the white paper is Resident Client Technology Support and Training White Paper. Has some great things in there about the different types of support that you can offer your residents, whether it's going to be a hybrid type of support with some staff on the feet, some remote, maybe a partnership with a local community college, using some of their students to come on site and help. So it really offers a great resource if you're looking to put some of that into place in your communities. And as far as staff is concerned, you know, you have to keep them updated with all of the training as well. As I mentioned before, we use KnowBe4. We put out at least quarterly phishing campaigns. We provide them with different tips in our staff newsletter, you know, like how to, you know, basically it's almost like diagramming a sentence, but it's actually, you know, putting an email out there and showing the different areas of the email that you need to look at. If you're looking to see, you know, if that email is a little bit suspicious, if, you know, it's something that you don't recognize, take a look at this area and this area and this area to be able to tell whether or not you need to click on that. So, you know, those are just some of the things that we're doing here in Oberlin, you know, in addition to just ourselves with using our providers. You know, our cybersecurity insurance provider provides us with lots of information and, you know, some different types of PowerPoint presentations and different things to also stay current.
Thank you, Judy. Stephanie, if you can add a few of your thoughts on that as well. And I'll also add on another question for you, Stephanie, that just came up, asking about what would be an appropriate length for a password now, given that computing horsepower has increased and like 6-8 character passwords are getting cracked very easily.
Yeah, to talk about what the IT, you know, department can do to kind of help. I think one of the important things is to monitor your system and know what's normal and be able to be on the lookout when things are not normal. A lot of people do keep logs, but they seldom look at them. And so that is probably just one tip of understanding what's normal activity. And that is from a technical perspective, but then I would say that's also behavior of your residents. Like if they are not normally doing online shopping and suddenly do that, or if they're suddenly interested in traveling to meet somebody that they've met online, those kinds of things. So it's a combination of knowing what's normal and abnormal technically and by people. You're right. The point about the hackers are more sophisticated. Technology is helping them, and longer passwords really are better. I think that the industry standard is really going to multi-factor authentication for systems, so that when you log in, you do have to provide either a digit or a code that has come to either your into your text or other method of giving you that information. That is, you know, the key is trying to ensure that the people that have access to the network are authorized to be there. And that is probably one of the better practices. So the difficulty, of course, is, you know, a 16-character password is really difficult to remember. The tip that I have heard is think of, you know, 4 or 5 common words that you can string together that don't have to be exotic. You just have to remember those 4 or 5 words, and that gives you the 16 characters. So
right,
that's
so similar to a passphrase. So sometimes doing a passphrase type of sentence is almost easier than trying to remember a password that's 16 characters. I agree.
Right.
And we basically right now are 24 characters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we just
That's
recently
very strict.
updated. And we also use second factor authentication for any remote working, and we'll be implementing second factor authentication for all email, whether you're remote or you're on site.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep.
And then there's a chat about the 1.5 FTEs that I mentioned. So 1.5 FTEs includes myself, which I kind of straddle between IT and finance. And then we have a technology specialist who is the full FTE. We support over 340 residents. Limited support at this particular point in time as it relates to wireless connectivity, being able to connect their devices and being able to, if the wireless goes down, being able to support that. And yes, we do support staff as well. We have an internal help desk system. We use Desktop Central for our help desk system, which staff, put in the ticket, on a normal basis for whatever help they need. So yeah, so we don't have the bandwidth really to provide more support for our residents. That's why we're looking at different other opportunities to be able to assist them.
Thank you, Judy. I noticed a number of other questions come up, but I think we've answered them during the course of this conversation. And I'll also remind everybody again that this webinar is being recorded and the presentation material will be sent out as well. So you'll have all of this material with you. And our goal is to also take some of the insights that we've discussed during this webinar and maybe make, I'll just call it a cheat sheet for everybody that can be shared.
Right, and just one thing to note for anybody going to Leading Age National, the white paper, I believe that there is a session on the resident client technology support and training, and that actually should provide a lot of insight into that white paper.
Thank you. And with that, I do want to say a big thank you to Stephanie Helm and Judy Miller for taking time out of their busy schedule to prepare for this webinar and then to actually have this discussion today, for their open and honest sharing of the insights and experience and vast experience that they bring to this topic. I certainly appreciate you joining this panel and having this discussion with me, and I know the Leading Age organization, as well as all the participants, are truly thankful for all that you have shared today. With that, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you found this to be a productive use of your time. My name is Rubesh Jacobs again. If there's any way that I can help you with some of these types of issues, specifically tech support, please reach out. I'd be glad to speak with you. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.